because that's how I roll, you know. Uh, so hey, I'm here with Navjot. It's like 10:30 p.m. Eastern on mid August, Friday, and it's like 7:30 on the West Coast. And Navjot just texted me recently just to catch up, and I was like, oh, you should kind of share your story with the community, because a lot of people are obviously thinking through their careers or trying to switch into a career or actually just enter the career, whether it's investment banking, um, private equity, M&A. Navjot was one of our graduates from a little while ago and, did really well, broke into first, I think, TMT banking. And, would love to have you unpack TMT and then later on, Wells Fargo investment banking. So, why don't we take a step back and share a little more about kind of your initial career background because it was a little untraditional, and then kind of in our program, some of the hard skills, soft skills you learned, and then just kind of walk us through the interview process and how you helped stand out a little better.
Yeah, definitely. So definitely didn't have the traditional background in terms of I didn't intern in investment banking when I was in college. Obviously, I went through the program, and then from there went to a boutique. And after a year at the boutique, I went to Wells Fargo lateral as a second year, and then stayed there for second and third year, and now exited to go pursue private equity or VC space or investing space in general. My interview process was pretty straightforward. I networked my way into it. That's, I think, one of the easiest ways to get into investment banking,
Mm-hmm.
either through career, your alumni at your school, your peers, your friends who are in the industry who can put you in the process, or your 10 networking events. College campuses has it, a lot of career events, as well as outside, just using LinkedIn, or like I mentioned, your friends who are in the industry as a resource. That's the easiest. It is a people's business. So to get into the interview process, I would say networking is a huge factor. And then interview process is pretty straightforward. You have to have your technicals down. That's If you can get through technicals, no amount of relationship is going to help you there. So get your technicals down. There's some of the resources. One is 400 questions that's out there. That's very helpful. That's what I had used to prepare. Outside of that, review the industry, review the bank you are interviewing with, what kind of deals they do, what can you use to stand out, their team structure, their team layout. If you're interviewing for a specific vertical, for example, I interviewed for TMT or technology, I made sure I am on top of all the news, I understand what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in the industry, and use that to your advantage. And then tying into my point, once you get through the technical round, that leaves more time for you to connect with your interviewer in terms of what their interests are, common connection in terms of whether you like the same sports, whether you have traveled to the same city. So that is always a plus point when you're standing out, because in investment banking you are working very, very long hours. It comes down to um, whether you can tolerate the person at 2 a.m. after
Mm-hmm.
turning through 27 turns of a model or a pitch deck or a same page, or you
Yeah.
absolutely can stand the person. So that's why likability is a big factor. Having the same interest is a big factor.
On the technicals, I know we went through a lot of technicals in our program. I guess which technicals do you think helped you the most? And especially when you go deeper on technicals, there's the LBO. We talked about today just kind of some of the M&A
Yeah.
transactions. You mentioned there's some complexities when you're doing like the M&A models. What makes those complex that you should kind of be aware of or be careful of? And then with the LBOs, what are some takeaways that you would recommend people to kind of go deeper on as they're going through multiple case studies?
Yeah, I think main thing important is having your how to build the three statements down, because that's a building block. How to do a revenue build. I think those two are just the basic foundations. And if you're working with private companies, you need to know how to look at the 10Ks and find things quickly, what deck to use, etc., as well as also comms. You need to be able to, I think, as an analyst, one of the key things that's very important is you understanding the comms. You're going to be using comms for pretty much whether you're building a model or whether you're just reviewing different competitors, etc. So reading the comms, how to accurately and get to the results that you need to. Outside of that, in terms of LBOs, merger models, or accretion dilution are the other two that you will use a lot. DCF as well. I didn't have to use DCF as much given I'm in TMT, but some of the other verticals or industry groups uses DCF a lot as well. And then LBO is pretty straightforward. If you're working with the finance sponsor, you're going to need the LBO. In my opinion, LBO tends to be a lot easier out of all the bunch of modeling out there. With accretion dilution or merger model, I think the complexity tends to be converting everything from GAAP to non-GAAP, and then um, comparing it against each individual target, versus in LBO you might be only doing it for one of the targets. So I think that's where the complexity tend to be. But I think a lot of firms use templates. So as you build, as you do these, tends to get easier. It becomes a muscle memory, but your
Hmm.
buildings block, reading the 10K comms, though three statements, they need to be on point for you to do any sort of modeling, or even doing basic TAM analysis. You need to be able to know how to research and what to use, and need to have a long-term view in mind.
You talked about networking and building relationships, so I think you're really good with connecting with people and obviously building trust. But what advice would you have for people that obviously are cold messaging people or meeting people at networking events? How can they maybe build more of a deeper connection with people, just from your experience?
I think build relationship with people early on, way
Hmm.
ahead of time, not when you are looking for a job search, right? If I
Yeah.
message someone or somebody reaches out to me today and I know I have a position opening, I'm less inclined to put that person in a process, versus if I've spoken to someone two, three times over the past 3 months, I have
Hmm.
enough of a relationship and trust to be confidently say I am putting this person in the process. At the end of the day, when you recommend someone, you're also putting your reputation on the line up to some extent.
Hmm.
So I would want to you want to be confident who you're recommending, so building relationship upfront. And at any networking event, if you're meeting someone, always send a follow-up, no matter who it is, even if it's just a one word, hey, it was great to connect. uh, just send that a thank you note, right? And next time you're in the area, always give the person heads up, hey, I'm in the area, would love to grab coffee, would love to grab lunch. That's how you build a long-term connection. You don't I think networking is one of the most powerful tools. You might not realize the person might not be useful to you today,
Hmm.
but 5 years down the road, uh, when you're going up to a senior position, now the person is at a lot more senior position than you. That's when, if you have built the relationship over the past year or 2 years, they will pick up the phone and call you whenever the position
Hmm.
arises. So I think it's not just early on, but building a long-term relationship with people. So you could, and vice versa. If you are at a leadership position and you need to hire a senior person for your team, and you had connected with someone 5 years ago, you can always call that person. You're doing a deal, sourcing,
Hmm.
any sort of thing. I think networking and building that long term relationship is the key, rather than just reaching out to someone 2 days, 3 days before or when the position is open.
Yeah. What would you recommend for people that are pivoting, so they're working in engineering or they're working in nonprofit or marketing. We've seen people from all walks of life. So what would you advise people that definitely are coming from a hard, career change? How can they kind of use their past experiences to kind of, showcase still their skill sets and to still show that they're a really good candidate?
Yeah, I can only speak in terms of investment banking on that point. So,
Yeah.
we do see a lot of MBA associate who are 9 out of the 10 times are career changer or career pivoters.
Hmm.
So I think one thing that I have seen a lot of time, these people have 10 years of experience, but they could be working with a 22, 23 to 22 to 25-year-old analyst who is right out of the college. And
Yeah.
arguably, that analyst has been in investment banking. They understand a lot more about the banking than an MBA associate with 10 years of experience might be. So,
Hmm.
a lot of time where people struggle the most is the egos get in the way, that a lot younger person is now telling me what to do rather than looking at it, hey, I might have 10 years of experience, but that person has been in the position a lot longer than me. They have seen it, they know it. I should be learning from them. I think one that's, I would say, to be a good associate, anybody who's coming from a career changing or MBA route, leaving the ego aside and sort of
Yeah.
learning from the second year associate until you get ramped up and eventually you're going to be their boss. But the first year, you that's very crucial.
Hmm.
That would be the differentiating factor, whether you stay and be successful in that career long term, or you're the most hated MBA associate out there.
Yeah, sure. And what were some of the skills that you developed coming out of the Sutton program? Maybe the hard skills and then maybe the soft skills. I know we looked at deals too. So if there's any things that you could share as far as kind of like outputs from the program, that would be maybe good too for the community.
Yeah, I think one thing that was pretty crucial, that I realized how to drive a thesis, because when we were looking at the deals, we were also
Hmm.
looking at taking it to investment committee. So driving a thesis, putting that investor lens on, looking at the financials early on, and also the business model, looking at companies with no revenue to tiny bit of revenue, how to differentiate just with the initial conversation. That was very good life lesson, how to gauge and build the perception. And in terms of financials, I think there was a good intro in terms of understanding the modeling, without having any prior sort of outside of college experience, how to look at 10K, how to build a model, how the good intro to model and building the basis of those accounting concept was very useful.
And then you got into TMT, but Navjot, I just got to leave with this. I mean, you said it was like easy, but like typically people are struggling tooth and nail to really outperform in the interview. So I would say, like, what's the secret advice that you want to leave with us to outperform? I know it's the financials, but still everybody that's interviewing for these roles, they're all good at financial modeling. They all probably are good at speaking. So what do you think was that sparkling special trait? I think I'm thinking maybe it's maybe also your personality, like you resonate well with people. But like, what else is it? What do you think is that secret tip? Beyond just knowing the financial models, like the table stakes, right? Like what helped you really stand out? Because it's still very competitive, even though you're telling me, hey, Joel, it was easy and it wasn't too bad. What advice would you give to just help people really just outperform? Because there's only one job, right? There's probably a couple hundred people applying, even if you look at these roles on LinkedIn. So how do you be the best candidate to finally get the offer?
I would say connect with your interviewer. That's the
Yeah.
easiest. It comes down
Hmm.
to whether I want to work with you when I am frustrated, 3 very long nights, and it's 2 a.m. Is Are you the person I can see and not hate my life more? That's just what
Yeah.
it comes down to. in investment banking, like I mentioned earlier on, that's literally a difference between a good candidate to a bad candidate. If it's a good personality fit, like I mentioned, obviously you have to nail the technicals, you have to be good
Hmm.
at it. That's 90% of your job, but that likability factor has to be there, and whether you're going to be a good fit in the team.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think the chemistry, the connection with those people want to just have the feeling that they want to work with you long term. So I definitely agree with that. And then I think you said one more thing earlier, which I think is also true for fundraising. Like, a big piece of advice I always hear is fundraise when you're not fundraising, right? So you may be fundraising maybe 18 months from now, but if you don't build those relationships, go to dinner with people, get to know people as human beings, they're not that excited to work with you because there's a lot of people to work with. So same thing, like maybe when you're interviewing for your next role, you're probably going to meet a lot of people in the industry, and you want to kind of build that goodwill and relationships with those people. I know a guy that got a role at a private equity consulting firm, and essentially they provide all the consulting services to a lot of private equity firms. So if you think about it, right, they know a lot of the hiring managers if they ever wanted to go across the pond, because they pretty much showcase their work already as a consultant, right? So now if you go to the other side, who do you think they'd rather hire? They'd probably want to hire somebody that they've kind of worked with as a partner, to just say, hey, why don't you just come to our shop, versus just kind of the open, LinkedIn or internal hire where they got to go through that process and see if the chemistry is there. So.
Exactly. And it also, even internally, I've seen it being on the outside and inside. Even when we're looking at the candidates, we look at who we, if we see resume, oh, has anyone spoken to this person? Or, yes, I know this person, that's great, I've spoken to them. It just, when you're looking at 500 resumes, you have to find a way to narrow it down, and it comes
Mhm.
down to who seems familiar, who have
Yeah.
we spoken to, who have we connected, do you know someone, is anyone in the group know someone,
Hmm.
right? Like, it just comes down to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know also, I would say in private equity and VC, just being top of mind to your point. So I know someone that was trying to get a role at a venture fund, and this person just continuously, periodically would send interesting deals. And then it's almost like he was already working for that firm, because that firm is looking for deals, and they would get a bunch of great deals from him. So they would remember, and then their coworkers would be like, look, where did you find this deal? And there's going to be some point where maybe, you're in the market now to find somebody, and that's the main person that's top of mind, right? So that definitely goes along with what you were saying. But Navjot, this was amazing. I didn't want to take up too much of your time because I know you're super busy, but this was a really huge help. Thanks for sharing your story. I guess looking back, because you've worked in two interesting banking roles, any just final piece of advice, maybe life advice for people?
Yeah, I would say, don't take it too seriously. You are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Learn from those mistakes, especially early on in your career.
Hmm.
Learn from them rather than, dwelling down on it. And with each mistake, it's a learning opportunity. And I think that's just what, in investment banking, instead of going down that I made a mistake, that's a deeper hole you can get into. It's okay to make mistakes, learn from it, connect with people, and move on.
Yeah. Well, Navjot, thank you so much, and excited to catch up with you soon, and so happy to hear from you today. And
Likewise.
thanks for hopping on.
Of course, likewise.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.